Do you ever feel like in any area of your life, you know what to do, but for whatever reason, you can't seem to do it?
Like every day. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're human.
What
Congratulations.
are
So
like top foods that people should and should not be having in order to just be generally speaking eating healthier? Welcome back to another amazing episode. We have an electric guest for you today. Paul Salter joins the show. Paul is a high performance mindset coach who helps high performers get unstuck and unlock their potential. He coaches business owners, coaches, entrepreneurs, aspiring and professional golfers, professional poker players, as well as those who aspire to do, be, and achieve more. His coaching approach draws on his 15 years of experience working with thousands and utilizes hypnosis, subconscious reprogramming, and a combination of other high performance, rapid change strategies to uncover the origin of fears, beliefs, and behaviors keeping you stuck in a life of mediocrity so that you can unlock your full potential and live your best life. Let's dive into it. All right, Paul, thank you so much for coming to the show today. I appreciate it.
yeah, Scott, thank you so much for having me, man. Looking forward to the conversation.
I love it. So let's just dive right into it. I know I talked about it in the intro, but essentially, what in the world is a high performance mindset coach? Don't know what that is. What is that?
Do you ever feel like in any area of your life, you know what to do, but for whatever reason, you can't seem to do it?
Like every day. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're human. Congratulations. So most people make the mistake thinking they have a lack of knowledge problem. So they read the books, they listen to the podcast, maybe they buy the courses, maybe they even hire the technical or the business coaches. But the truth is, we live in a day and age where there is no shortage of information. I mean, in a matter of milliseconds, you can get 5,000 high protein cheesecake recipes or the literal blueprints that NASA uses to build their rocket ships on Google. So we don't have a lack of information problem. We have a mindset problem. And where I come into play is help uncover the emotional triggers that you are forced to traverse every single day of your life that, when triggered, basically initiate a downward cascade effect that influences your self-talk, your beliefs about yourself, the action or inaction you do or do not take, and then ultimately your results and your identity. So from emotional trigger to your reality and identity, what happens downstream, I like to call a destructive mindset program. So as a mindset coach, I help you uncover your very own destructive mindset programs, understand why they are there, unlearn them, let them go, or upgrade them so that they help you achieve your goals rather than being counterproductive.
Interesting. Destructive mindset program. And then you also mentioned like the emotional triggers to
Mhm.
not do something. So I guess in fitness, like that's more of my, fitness mindset coaching is more my field. In fitness, the triggers we get is like stress, right? Like had a long day at work and then you get home and then it's either go to the cabinet for food or go on your couch for Netflix versus going to the gym, right? And that's where people like they need to go to the gym, they know they got to eat healthy, and yet for whatever reason there's these stressor points or these stimulus points that stop them from doing that. So is that like a similar concept?
In a way, yes. But the way I like to differentiate kind of the view on stress, obviously, we know across the board, stress is incredibly negative in so many facets of life. But stress really is like an amplifier, a conduit that really is just supercharging the emotional obstacle that is at the core of the problem. Yes, stress on its own can be considered a separate entity. But when you think about, for example, in the weight loss, the health fitness field, like a lot of us struggle in that realm with our identity. You know, our family, our friends, our siblings are overweight, unhealthy, for example. We think about wanting to lose weight, change our lifestyle. That leaves us having to change our identity, which threatens our sense of belonging. We're a tribal species. For centuries, if we didn't have a tribe or a community, we literally died. And although that's outdated and feels irrational today, it is as real as ever today. So with that said, we need to be very cognizant that there is likely more than just poor stress management that's taking place. There's fear of judgment, abandonment, rejection, disappointment, and embarrassment that need a closer look as well.
Wow, I like it. So what are some of the things, and feel free to like push the door back. I was like, oh, is someone coming in? Like, that's crazy.
That's the cat. That's the animals for you.
Oh, the animals. Okay. Well, if they want to come on, they're more than happy to come on, jump in here. It's fine. People are like, what is that? So what are some of these triggers? Like, so like you work with people, whatever it is, like, and I know everyone is different. So obviously it's very much case by case, but are there certain things that you look for that are common emotional triggers that people could become self-aware on right now that could maybe help them start doing things they know they should be doing?
It's the end of the month. Rent's due. Bills need to be paid. Your boss asks you to deliver a presentation or a talk. It's time to run payroll. It's time to lead the weekly meeting. It's time to go to the gym. You have a date this Saturday night. Your brother-in-law invites you out to do X, Y, and Z. There are so many. We literally traverse like a battlefield of emotional landmines every single day.
So, so regular, almost everyday things can create a negative response that then stops us from doing what we want to do that are aligned with the particular goal we have. So are there any like, because by the way, that like resonates with me. I'm like, oh, I gotta go do this thing, especially if you are like an introvert like me, where it's like, oh, all right, gotta go do this thing. And it causes a little bit of stress. Not that it's a bad thing, not that you don't want to do the thing, but the idea of it is like, oh my gosh, what are some things? So let's say it is the rent is due, or it is that the boss gave you more assignments, and that starts to create this kind of, I guess, destructive mindset program. What are some things people can do, maybe to undo that or to get past it?
Yeah, so let's use money as an example. It's pretty relatable across the board. So there's a concept out there, and I did not create this. Ed Milet did. If you know Ed Milet, great podcaster, person to follow. But he has this concept known as like your emotional home, which basically between the ages of 0 and 7, we are literally a sponge. We've all heard that
Yes.
expression, but we're so impressionable and malleable, not only to what is said or done to us or for us, but we pick up so subtly the non-verbals, the tonality, the vocal choices, the word choices, and what's going on. So if you were raised, as an arbitrary example, by a single mother with 3 siblings and your single mother worked 3 part-time jobs to pay the bills, even though at 6 years old you couldn't tell mom was stressed about bills, your subconscious could absolutely feel it. So this scarcity was impressed upon you at a young age. And our emotional home, no matter how, detrimental it seems when we think about it logically, like our subconscious seeks to recreate this because it's familiar, it's predictable, it's routine, and our subconscious number one priority is to keep us safe or keep us alive. So you will find yourself going through patterns of repeating these same situations over and over again. Like we see it in dating all of the time. Not to get off with another example, but with the money here, if the rent is due or you get a large bill, that immediate response is there's not enough. Lack, scarcity. That anxiety may manifest as tightness in the chest. It might be pressure or a burden weighing down on your shoulders, knots in your stomach. But what inevitably happens is that feeling, that emotion, anxiety triggers, I don't have enough money. How am I going to pay the bills? There's this thought pattern that begins to trickle effect, which influences the belief, I'll never work a job. I'll never earn $100,000 a year. These beliefs lead to action or inaction, and it just continues this downward spiral of depression, anxiety, and a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And I want to go into that, but I want to add a little bit to it. Is okay. So you're also a registered dietitian, so you have a very good nutritional background and kind of all this as well. So is there like a nutrition or a fitness example that you can give people as well? Because like, for example, if you know you need to lose 40 pounds, right, or 40 pounds of fat, whatever it is, and you go through this, like, why would that happen? Because of things from 0 to 7 years old that we experience, and then like, how does that cascade versus like, the stress of not having enough money, which I think everyone understands that very, very well, because we're all constantly trying to pay our bill. That's a very, I love the tangible example because everyone gets it, right? Everyone understands rent, everyone understands the stress, but I feel like fitness is a little bit different because it's a lot, some of it can be intangible. Obviously the way you look, very tangible. I can see it, boom. But the work that you put in could be intangible, because a lot of people are like, oh, I do all this work. And it's like, did you really? Like, did you actually really do this? It's very much sometimes intangible to someone's naked eye, because it's like, I think I put all this work in, but I didn't actually do it the way I said I did it, so on and so forth. So like, from a fitness perspective or nutrition perspective, is there an example that you can give to help people out?
Absolutely. So let's assume, you are one of a couple siblings, you're a couple children, you have a few siblings growing up. The more and more siblings that your parents, your children that your parents accumulate, siblings that you accumulate, you get less and less time, energy, and attention.
Yes.
There is a harder time meeting your core childhood and human need of being seen, heard, validated, having love, acceptance, belonging in your life. So at some point, a one-off moment that might seem silly 30 years later, at that point in time to a 5-year-old girl or boy where your dad told you to go to your room or stay out of sight or be quiet or get out of here, like you didn't feel safe being seen. So you continue to play small. You continue to be timid, lacking confidence, belief, esteem, self-worth. So we extract that into the health and fitness realm as an adult. And maybe right now you are overweight. You're struggling with your appearance, body image, food-related issues. The pure invitation of a friend or a family member, which has the utmost positive intention to join them and go out could be a trigger because deep in your mind, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to take photos and I don't want to be seen, because that triggers, I don't believe in myself. I'm not worthy. My self-esteem's low. I lack confidence. There's so much doubt, negativity, and that is going to suddenly be amplified. Everyone's going to see me. Literally, I'm in the spotlight. It feels so uncomfortable. And typically one of two things happen. You either completely crash diet for the weeks leading up to the event, or you continue to skip out on these social occasions. We both know as tribal creatures that we thrive on community and connection. Isolation leads to despair, darkness, loneliness, and hopelessness. So going this route, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of the habits that you continue to engage in, the poor dietary choices, the isolation, and on we continue to find ourselves with the result of I'm even heavier or I'm still the same, and that's not a good place to be.
Interesting. I love that. And I talk a lot about the same stuff as we're basically very similar. And I think where you put it together is, okay, from 0 to 7, or even it could be after that. I just think there's a very malleable time in our lives where things that happen to us and we create our reality based on what we learned when we were younger. I think it's because of our theta brainwaves at the time. I won't get into all that. But the idea is, we learn all this stuff and then it manifests years later, especially if it's like, hey, I'm lazy when it comes to my fitness. Well, maybe not. Maybe there's some underlying condition that is causing you to feel or act a certain way. Okay, fair enough. I guess my question would be, what do you do about it? So now that someone comes, sees you or whoever, it's like, hey, I can't lose the weight because I get all these stressors. And like, once you identify it, how do you undo this thing that we probably perceived as bad, whether it is or not, doesn't actually matter. But we perceived going to a room as bad as a kid, don't want to be seen, get stressed. How do we undo the emotional, I hate to use the word emotional damage, but how do we undo the emotions that we have from that experience?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think what's important to lead out with here is like the collection of fears, beliefs, and behaviors that we all harbor now that we dislike, that are hurting us, holding us back. At one point in time, they kept us safe, or they helped us meet a childhood need that was going unmet. So it's important to keep in mind that oftentimes when we confront such behaviors and beliefs, like it seems irrational. We get frustrated, like, why the heck do I keep doing this stupid thing over and over again? So what I have found, and I'll preface with this, like the fastest way to accelerate results is to ask for help. Hire a coach. You and I both know that. But on your own, seeking a place of silence, solitude, and stillness to allow yourself an opportunity to quiet your mind. I don't care if that's journaling, a walk, meditation, breath work, whatever it is for you. Just quiet time is going to create an opportunity where you can begin to turn down the volume of your emotional brain, turn up the volume of your logical, rational, critical thinking brain, give you an opportunity as you continue to relax to, like you alluded to, hit those theta waves, connect with your intuition, allow yourself to compassionately, with curiosity, unpack your past. Like, okay, I continue to sabotage by binging every night at 9 o'clock. I know X, Y, and Z is a trigger. How does that make me feel? Well, right before that, I'm anxious. I'm overwhelmed. I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen. And you can allow yourself to kind of walk back in time using those particular emotions and physical sensations as catalysts to help you pinpoint moments earlier in life where you felt that way. That awareness in and of itself is going to be incredibly valuable and curative, and you can continue to revisit and let go of some of the emotions surrounding that. And then, we can go on a whole nother segue into inner child healing, etc. But the point is just really unpacking when, why, and how these beliefs and behaviors came to be will help you recognize, oh, like 7 years old, yeah, this helped me. 47 years old, nope,
Not
no
so
longer need
much.
this.
Okay, I have two points I wanted to kind of touch on what you just said. One is there's a lot of pushback, I believe at least, on I think you and I are very similar in kind of how our approach is. Create the awareness, right? Create the awareness of how you're feeling, what's going on. And that way, once you create it, you can identify the problem. Therefore, you can act in accordance with the problem at hand versus acting at a subsidiary thing that's okay, it's the stress. Well, no, it's not. It's the root cause, right? So we're looking at the root cause versus kind of one of the side effects of the root cause. Totally agree with you. The pushback I get a lot, and I think a lot of people get, is we understand it. We can, any given day, we can stop and go, why am I doing this? What's going on? How does someone learn? Because you say like, go into, oh, just take 5 minutes and be quiet. Most people that I tell do that to are like, okay, so what? I did that. Nothing happened. Who cares? What's this? Like, they don't have the skill set or even the awareness to be aware that they're what they're looking for. How do you train someone, or what are some tips or hacks that you can give someone to say, look, if you're just starting out, you're hearing this, you've resonated with something that Paula said, how, like, what are one or two things I can do to start creating that awareness so that I can actually sit silent and start analyzing my thoughts? Because a lot of it's just like Fugazi, Fagoozy, this is woo-woo, what doesn't actually matter. You're telling me to create awareness of how I'm feeling at the moment, but I don't track how I'm feeling at that moment. So how do I become aware that I have to track? I just think there's a leap there that people are having trouble with, and we're talking over it versus talking to how to do it.
Yeah. So the first thing I should have clarified, I'm so glad you brought that up, is when you are in that stillness and solitude, some type of framework, journal prompts, questions ahead of time, so you can set an intention. That way you can walk through. I'm not expecting you to pull all this out of nowhere and to suddenly heal yourself in 5 minutes of silence. I should have been more clear there. So thank you. B, though, it's interesting you mentioned that, because like the act of starting to gain awareness is akin to learning a new behavior. And so many of us, I'm sure, and I know actually for a fact, like you've talked about habit formation and behavior change at length. So in any realm of behavior change, this being, hey, I'm starting to gain awareness of how I feel, where anxiety, for example, presents itself physically in my body, it's different. So many people make the mistake of thinking different is bad, different is uncomfortable. No, it's just fucking different. And sometimes we have to sit with that different. And although our first thought is maybe to label it as bad, the longer we sit with it, the quicker we begin to recognize, okay, this is different. I am now creating space or an opportunity by sitting in this different feeling to change how I behave or respond. So through that literal, I know it sounds overly simple, awareness practice, you begin to recognize that every time you feel anxiety in your stomach or tightness in your stomach, that's just your body communicating with you. So if you can get ahead of that, you can start to put in strategies like breath work, like walking away from the situation, like counting backwards from 10 to allow yourself to emotionally regulate and self-soothe so that you can create a space, a gap, or an opening to choose a different behavior, thought, or response than you're accustomed to choosing.
I like that. So what would be your thoughts on kind of I don't mean to put any words in anyone's mouth, but this is my take on kind of what I've heard, the Hormozy approach to problems. I'm not sure if you know Alex Hormozy, blew up recently, been doing it for years and years, big gym guy. And his essential approach is just go do it. Like, it's like, yeah, there's this problem. I have this, because a lot of people use quote, again, I don't want to use the word trauma because I want to be very specific. It's just childhood perceptions of how we grow up and protection mechanisms that we've used from our childhood. And then we use it as a crutch to not do things in our current life. I believe the Hormozy approach is, okay, that's what it is. So what? Go do it anyway, because it doesn't help me to allow this thing to stop me from what I do. Whereas I find that a lot of coaches in the mindset field are like, okay, we have to examine in every possible way why not getting the cookie when you were 4 years old and your parents yelled at you was causing all these issues, and you got to go through years of therapy. It's like, I see both approaches, and I'm not trying to, obviously I'm more of the Alex Hormozy approach. It's like, okay, we figured it out. Let's just go push through, versus the more clinical setting of things. What's your thought on that for root cause?
Yeah, I love what Alex Hormozy says. I understand what he's saying, and I think it's also worth saying he's not for everybody. He's for me, though. I totally agree. And with that said, there's a lot of merit there, because what I've identified, having worked with thousands of clients of all walks of life, is that the true separator from those who are like absolutely high performers is that they take action regardless of how they feel. So connecting it back with Hormozy, like, do it anyway. Like, the harsh reality is you're not responsible for your limiting beliefs and sabotaging behaviors and stories, but you are the only fucking person who can do something about it. So you can play the victim card all day long and be stuck in a life of mediocrity, or you can leverage that and use it as fuel to explore, why am I the way I am? What don't I like? What's not serving me? And start unlearning and letting go of those things, and keep forging a path toward whatever goal, dream, or destiny you're trying to create.
I agree. I was just curious. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll add too, like, I think conventional or traditional therapy is great in so many ways. But there's also a reason I'm incredibly biased towards hypnotherapy. It's fast and effective.
Yeah.
Much
Which
faster.
leads me to, what is hypnotherapy? Because my thought on hypnotherapy is, I watched the movie Now You See Me, and Woody Harrelson's character is the guy who does like the mentalist stuff. He's like, hey, like, you're gonna tell me this, and on stage on Instagram videos where the guy punches you and knocks you, okay, now you can't move your feet. I just literally just saw one yesterday, like, hey, your feet will be stuck to the stage and now they can't move. It's like what is hypnotherapy, and what do you do with hypnotherapy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do not swing a pocket watch, put you to sleep, or get you to cluck around like a chicken. What you described is a form of hypnosis, stage hypnotism, purely for entertainment. That's a whole different scope, nothing that I do. So the way that I define hypnosis, and if my definition is eerily similar to Dr. Huberman's, because it is the true definition here, which is simply a state of deep relaxation with the intention to make positive change. If you have meditation or yoga background, another way to think about it is an intimate, deep, guided meditation to help you achieve a goal. So with that said, every step of the way, you are awake, alert, conscious, and in control. I am merely your guide, and we go to where we need to go. So the two benefits, or the magic behind hypnosis, if you will, is, number one, when you're in this deeply relaxed state, you're able to quiet the inner critical judgmental factor of your conscious mind. That voice that says, you suck, this will never work, it'll always be this way. We bypass that altogether. And two, you connect directly with your subconscious mind, which is home to your intuition, your creative power, and also your emotions, your memories, your beliefs, your values, and your habits. So we can quickly get to the source, the origin, and uncover why this self-sabotaging behavior came to be, understand who, what, when, or why, what was involved, and then do the necessary work through various therapeutic modalities to let it go or upgrade it so that now it works for you rather than against you.
So would you say that when you do hypnotherapy, you are essentially putting your mind into that theta state from 0 to 7 years old, to then bypass the thoughts, to then maybe recreate or reshift how you feel about something, so that when you are back in your regular state, you at minimum will believe something slightly different, or at least are on the way to being more in line with what you want to do?
1,000%. So the way to think about it too is, like, there's a concept, it's a mouthful, but it's called memory reconsolidation, which basically says every time you, and those of you who can see me on video, pluck a memory from your subconscious, it never gets put back the same. So when we're in that deeply relaxed state, we pluck it, we look at it differently, we examine it differently, we add different emotion, we view it from a different emotional state. So it goes back much different, which is akin to opening a Microsoft Word document, having a story of your life written. And when you open it, you have a chance to edit it. So when you save it, it's not the same document again, just like your memory is not the same when you put it back after doing that deep work in a hypnotic state.
Is there a difference between someone who tries to meditate and gets in that quiet space that you were talking about for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just to get away of all the self-critical stuff and become self-aware, and getting into this hypnotic state? And can you do it on your own?
You can absolutely do it on your own. So just like meditation, there's tiers of impact in how long it may take to achieve a goal. So, learning self-hypnosis is a little bit different than meditation. It's a little bit more intense on the visualizations and having some prompts, cues, and intentions, which just simply takes a little practice, is what separates it a little bit from meditation. Obviously, each meditation can be so unique in and of itself. But if you think about like, I'm going to go plug in a meditation for 10 minutes, fantastic. So many benefits there. But if you're then going to go do it where someone is guiding you, even better. Then if you have someone who curated a personal, customized self-hypnosis for you based on you, your goals, your trajectory, that much better. Then in a one-on-one fashion, it is that much faster, that much more intimate.
I will say in my experience with meditation, I've done a couple different variations of it. I've done YouTube videos. We just listen to it. I did the Nerva app for gut meditation to help heal, which didn't feel like it worked, by the way. Not to say they don't work. I just didn't feel like it worked. And then I've also done the Dr. Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation. And I felt that was the most effective, actually. And it almost feels like you're in flow state while meditating is the best way I can explain it. Whereas I've done meditation, you sit there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you do your thing, you have your intention, and then there's something usually that hits after the fact, like something midway through, you feel something. And then like, whether it's more relaxed, more clarity, I consider it to be a flow state in meditation. And then it lasts for however long it lasts for. But I've had those kind of different stages of meditation. Is that a decent way to think about it? At least I'm not an expert in meditation by any means. I'm just curious as to your thoughts.
Yeah, hypnosis is essentially mirroring that flow state.
Wow.
Absolutely, because it's that theta brainwave production. As you go from beta to alpha, you start having the alpha theta overlap, more and more theta. Yeah, you're just in a state where it's effortless. You're incredibly present, concentrated, focused, all your attention on this one particular moment, and it just quiets the noise, negativity, and nonsense of your conscious mind and allows you to tap into you in the moment.
How critical would be, hypnotherapy for someone? Okay, so again, let's bring it back to kind of the undertone of fitness and health. Like, you have medical problems, you want to lose weight, whatever it is. I don't care what the goal is, but like, how quickly could someone use hypnotherapy to change whatever limiting belief they have and start actually acting in in congruency with the goals they have?
It's a difficult question to answer. You know the same thing as you know what I'm going to say. It's individualized. It really depends. I can tell you, and please take this with a grain of salt as a one-off. I have had women who I have worked with who have binged for years. It's taken 1 to 3 sessions and they have stopped binging. I would say, however, 6-ish is typically the sweet spot, 6 to 10. Not just the calls, there's in between work, accountability, action, true change, and at its core, a definitive commitment and willingness to change. But there's a study that was published in 1970 that I think will help give some better context that basically compared the impact and recovery rate of various therapeutic modalities. So traditional therapy, CBT, and hypnotherapy. And what they found was that on average, those engaging in traditional therapy experienced a 38% positive impact, which is nothing to write home about. The caveat here is it took an average of 600 sessions, which is more than 10 years of weekly therapy. So I'm not going to tell you how to spend your time and your money. However, hypnotherapy, on the other hand, those engaging in that as their primary modality experienced a 93% recovery after an average of 6 sessions. So I base my coaching packages, for example, I start at 6 calls. I don't ever want to overpromise. There are so many confounding and complex variables involved, but it's fast. If you're truly willing and ready to make change and you desire to change whatever aspect of your life we're focused on, we can get to the core and really unpack, unlearn, and upgrade a lot of things quickly.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, 6 sessions is crazy. Crazy fast too. Very interesting. How do you know someone is like, again, there's a lot, like you said at the very beginning, there is so much information out there, and that leads to paralysis by analysis. It leads to people not knowing what's true, what's not true. How does someone, let's say they're interested in this, find a hypnotherapist other than yourself, obviously? And like what is a credential? Is there like a certified body that is hypnotherapy? For example, personal training, NASM, ACSM, ACE, NSCA, ISSA, all accredited certifications with some sort of health board that, if they have this, at least they pass some sort of test and there's somewhat credential to do what they're doing. Is there something in that realm for hypnotherapy?
So a couple of fun facts, and then I'll get to it, but I think I always feel it's interesting to share this. So hypnosis has been around for over 3,000 years. It was actually a staple in ancient Egyptian culture. With that said, there is no official true, just like NASM, ACSM kind of organization right now. It's in the works. There are multiple governing boards, if you will, National
Okay.
Institute of Hypnotherapists, things like that. However, there are a handful of certification and credentialing bodies. What you want to look for if you are someone who's seriously considering, aside from know, like, trust, go talk to that person and use your inner gut and judgment on it. What you want to look for is, if you do want to ask the question, like, where did you get your hypnotherapy credential in? You want to understand and know to be true that they had some form of supervised practiced hours. They didn't just take an online weekend course and in 24 hours they're a hypnotherapist. You know, it kind of almost goes
Yeah.
similar, like as a dietitian back in my younger years, I used to get a little upset, like, oh, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist, and I just paid a god awful amount of money to become a dietitian. So hypnotherapy, the governing board, all of that stuff, like dietetics, like personal training, those big organizations are coming down the road, I think, very soon. But there is nothing comparable to like NSCA or ACSM right now.
Okay. So yeah, talk to the people you want to work with, essentially, make sure you like it. And also, I think it might be important to understand kind of like, you are a high performance mindset coach. Like, that is the coaching, and then you use hypnotherapy as part of your coaching practice, right?
Correct. It's one of my modalities. It's
Exactly.
my go-to, but it's not everything. It's very unique based on where we're at, meeting the individual where they're at and where they need to go.
I like it. As a registered dietitian, so hitting on that kind of nutrition part, just for my own benefit, is so gotta ask, what are like top foods that people should and should not be having in order to just be, generally speaking, eating healthier?
You're gonna put me in a tough spot where
Yeah.
I have to put out the preface, like everyone's so individualized.
Right.
So we're just gonna assume everybody knows that. But in a perfect world, I would just tell you peanut butter and ice cream because those are my favorites, but I know I can't do that. Protein, 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 like animal meat, freaking protein, like steak, salmon, personal preference here. I know I'll get pushback and whatnot from those who think red meat's too bad or we need to limit those qualities. This is my lens of experience and what I've seen working with 3,000 plus individuals. Prioritizing protein every single time you eat has got to be priority number one. So I really like the salmon and the red meat, the chicken, steak, etc.
Okay. So you're talking about lean protein too, for like the
Lean.
chicken. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. You can still have some lean red meats, the flank steaks and what sirloins, of course.
Okay. What about some foods that, like, hey, just cut this out, like, stop eating this?
Yeah, any of the processed stuff with all the seed oils that's been fried 3 times over, that comes in a bag and has a shelf life for 10 years, probably not your best. And they're usually the most obvious. It's the processed snack foods that are on the go, any variety of different bars and things like that right now, where they're cereal bars or they're granola bars. Those of you can see me, I'm doing air quotes, that are they have a couple almonds in them, but they're labeled high protein cereal bar. Like, no, there's no actual protein in there, things like that. So the processed bars is one. Anything fried should just be special occasion. It shouldn't be something that's anywhere remotely close to even being occasional.
When you say seed oil, what do you mean? There's a lot of confusion on seed oil right now.
So, the way that I like to prioritize like sourcing my healthy fats, for example, is like, so without going too much into like unsaturated and saturated, because I do like coconut oil, I do like butter in a moderate amount. But the olive oil, the avocado oil, when you get into the canola oils, the flaxseed oils, the vegetable oils, the way that those respond under such intense high heats, or the way that they are, what's the word, expelled and pressed to be created, some weird things happen on a chemical structural level that typically don't respond very well in our bodies.
I'm in agreement with that. I'm a big fan. I tell everyone, I'm like, look, I could be wrong, and if you want to do what you want to do, that's great. But if you're working with me, I'm going to tell you extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, maybe, and then after that, don't go near. You don't need it. It's just I cook everything with olive oil. It's not am I a chef? No. Do I need to be a chef? I do not. And so therefore, just use the one we know is good. Everything else is still it's I could be wrong. It could be amazing for you, but odds are it's probably not. And so it's a matter of just kind of like, what are the odds? I'm like, just get rid of it. So I'm very much, and it probably reacts differently.
Think about this too. Like, I always like used to preface this, like, as just an American or a human in most parts of the world, like, what's good for you and what's not. Like, Where do you find all of these seed oils? You don't find them like soaked into your carrots, your broccoli, and your Brussels sprouts. No, you find them in the overly processed crap that is on the shelves that is good for 10 to 20 years. So like at the end of the day, you do know more or less where you should be gravitating towards when it comes to making nutritious food choices consistently. Trust your gut.
I like it. What what would you say as a dietitian and someone who, coaches people, you see what's going on, you've had over 3,000 people you've coached. What are some of like the biggest issues, like maybe two of the biggest issues you see in the nutrition industry, either people not getting results or that you see coming down from like the government or whatever companies are making food? Like what are the issues that people are facing?
Well, the nutrition labels and government regulation is absolute horse crap. So like that, I don't even need to get into that too much. They do not set the average person up for success. Like I always have to take a step back. Like I went to school for this for far too many years, and I have a very biased opinion because I was living in that world for so long. But what I find most people struggle with, and I know you see it all the time too, is they want to outsource their nutrition to the latest plan, to what their friend or what Karen down the street's doing. And that's not a recipe for long-term success. And I tell everybody I work with that the priority variable that everyone needs to focus on is adherence, because adherence breeds consistency. Consistency is the catalyst for significant sustainable results. So that begs the question, how do you foster an environment that's conducive to adherence? There's three simple ingredients. Number one, you have to create a foundation of eating habits that is unique to you. If you want to eat 6 times or 3 times per day, who am I to care or judge you? You need to find your sweet spot. And that's incredibly important because this is the way we want to go approaching this foundation of eating, that it serves us the rest of our life. So unique to you. It needs to be simple. You don't need to be doing complex calculus in MyFitnessPal every day to figure out how much or how much not to eat. So simple. When I used to build nutrition plans, like I like hand sizes, I like simple conversions and cheat sheets just to make everyone's life simpler so we can spend less time on that and more time enjoying the food and the company we eat it with. So we've got unique, we've got simple, and then of course it's got to be flexible. It's got to be flexible. Perfection is never the goal. Consistency is, and having flexibility when your best friend you haven't seen in 5 years is in town and invites you for beer, or Debbie in the office makes cheesecake once a year and it's a 12 on a 1 to 10 scale. You give yourself permission to intentionally indulge, trusting you're going to get right back on track at the next opportunity. So with a unique, simple, flexible approach, you create an environment that fosters adherence, consistency, and sustainable results.
Concisely said, well said. I agree with everything you just said. That's exactly what I would tell my clients as well. Unique, simple. It's so obvious to us, and yet people go to the ends of the earth to find these magical diets. And not to say the diets can't necessarily work innately. It's just that they're so rigid, they're so very specific, and you need to use them in perpetuity to see results, that people aren't getting what they're paying for or aren't getting what they think they're getting, that it becomes this just giant Goliath of a monster that no one can beat. And the thing is, it's almost like when you're giving someone instructions and they don't listen to quite what you're saying, they click the wrong thing, but then they keep clicking. It's like, well, I didn't tell you to click the first one. Now you're 10 steps different to what I'm trying to get you to do. Like if you just listen to the first step, you would have created the Goliath in the first place versus trying to find all these amazing things. It's like, oh, I found this new thing, but now I got to follow this and this and this. Now it's like, whoa, or just eat not processed food and then go from there. And I get, by the way, I'm someone, I speak from a major experience of like, I have IBS. I do a low FODMAP diet. I am very, very restricted in what I can and cannot eat, which I am finding out more and more every day. And so I understand like having a lot of restrictions. But for the average person who doesn't have that kind of stuff, it's just like literally just eat the least processed foods you can consistently over the course of time. Like you don't need to have the crazy, and I'm not bashing, but like you don't need to do carnivore, you don't need to do paleo, you don't need to do keto, you don't need to do all these things. Just don't do bad things, over 20% of the time, and then you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, you bring up so many good points there. Like the first I would say too is like the word diet has 2 definitions. So whoever marketed the one definition we know as eating with the intention to lose weight, like they're a bajillionaire, and more power to them. But the underlying secondary definition that we should all actually prioritize as the first is a habitual way of eating. And the example I will share to help illustrate this is like if someone tells you that they follow a plant-based diet, you don't automatically assume they're trying to lose weight. You just think, oh, do you routinely eat plant-based food? You don't eat animal meat. That has no implication of weight loss. So
Right.
that's the lens at which you should view your diet. Is this the habitual way you're going to eat for the rest of your life, regardless if you have a short-term goal of losing weight? Because the only difference on your plate when you're trying to lose weight between dieting and not dieting should just simply be the amount of food on your plate. You shouldn't have to reinvent your grocery list and your shopping habits as a result.
I mean, well said, perfectly put. I mean, consistency, huge part of it. Just like, what do I do if I'm gaining weight, losing weight? The same thing, just more or less of the food. Like, just, it doesn't have to change necessarily what you're doing. I like that a lot. So, is there anything that you still want to go over that we haven't really touched on yet? I know we hit on high performance coaching, hypnotherapy, you're a registered dietitian, and you kind of have all these different trades here. Like, where can people find you? You know, is there anything that you're offering right now to the audience? Any information like that?
Yeah, well, the first thing I will say is to your listeners is they need to keep following and connecting with you. Like, you have such great content, such great value to this world, and you're someone who genuinely cares. Like, I love your vibe and energy, so thank you for that. Second, Instagram, come hang out with me there at Paul Salter Coaching. I'm there sometimes too much, but every single day. And if you want to learn more about high performance mindset coaching, hypnosis, there's a couple links in my profile. You can head on over to unstuckyourselfmindset.com.
Love it. Everyone, that will be in the show notes so that you can follow Paul and ask him amazing questions. And obviously, I mean, like, the wealth of knowledge that Paul you have here is like, just like, we, first off, the fact that we agree means you're intelligent. That's the first thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, and I know we have some mutual friends that will probably agree with everything we said as well. And so I just think that I recommend everyone take a moment, follow, listen. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Give the 5-star reviews, all that amazing stuff. Same with here, subscribe, all that awesome stuff that everyone asks you to do a million times. But any final words before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I like to share this. Like, I have a quote tattooed on my forearm. It says, "You can't change unless you change." And the way that I'd like to reflect that to all of you listening is that you want to change your results, your identity, your weight, your health, your relationship with food. But that change starts with you. None of that can change unless you change. And change, circling back to what we discussed earlier, it just is. It doesn't have to be hard, bad, evil. It just is. It's different. It's novel, which may precipitate feelings of uncomfortability, but you can handle it. So you can't change unless you change.
Paul, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was a blast.